All right, so for this one's pretty straightforward. But before we actually, you could plug it in, but how do I know that tangent is the same as sine over cosine? So let's think of it like this, right? So if we say SOHCAHTOA, and I do want you to write this down because it kind of prepares you for what we're going to do with these trig identities. I'm going to say that tangent of theta is equal to sine of theta. So we're going to prove that that's true over cosine of theta. So what's tangent of theta with regards to the sides of a triangle, right? So remember, we're talking about right triangles where we have some angle theta here. This is the opposite. This is the adjacent. And this is the hypotenuse. Well, tangent is the opposite over the hypotenuse, isn't it? Or no, adjacent. Whoa, almost screwed the whole thing up. Right? That's what SOHCAHTOA means. Tangent is the opposite over the adjacent. Well, then sine is actually the opposite over the hypotenuse. That's what the sine is, the opposite over the hypotenuse. Well, sine over cosine, which is the adjacent over the hypotenuse. Is that right? Cosine is the adjacent over the hypotenuse. So over here, I have the opposite over the adjacent. And remember that this is like saying the opposite over the hypotenuse divided by the adjacent over the hypotenuse. But whenever we divide by a fraction, we multiply by the reciprocal. So this becomes the opposite over the hypotenuse times the hypotenuse over the adjacent. If you multiply that across, you get this over this. What happens to the h's? They cancel. So that's where that comes from. Okay, and if we were to do the same thing with cosine, you get the exact same thing. So this is really easy. If I say that tangent of theta is equal to sine of theta over cosine of theta, I get 1/2 as a fraction over negative root 3 over 2 as a fraction, which is the same as 1/2 times the reciprocal of negative 2 root 3. What happens to the 2's? They cancel. And so this negative sign, don't forget this negative sign, so you get negative 1 over the square root of 3. I have to rationalize the denominator, and I get the square root of 3 over 3, but it's negative, right? Actually, I think I can clean that up a little bit, make it look a little more presentable. So that's tangent. Okay? Cotangent is literally the reciprocal of that, but we'll plug and chug for the fun of it. So if I say this is cosine of theta all over sine of theta, I'm going to get negative root 3 over 2 divided by 1/2. that is going to be negative root 3 over 2 times 2 over 1. The 2's will cancel, and I get negative root 3 over 1, or just negative square root of 3. Which, by the way, is just the reciprocal of this thing, isn't it?